The Young and the Restless. YNR. Spoilers reveal that Audra Charles, Zuleika Silver, may gaslight Claire Newman, Haley Aaron, into thinking she's going off the deep end. Will Audra's rival end up questioning her sanity, thanks to a new Claire takedown plot? Audra was furious over Holden Novak's, Nathan Owen's, decision to spill at least part of what happened in Los Angeles. Holden didn't tell the worst parts of the story, but he did tell Claire about the stolen cashier's check drama and stirred up some trouble for Audra. Even so, Audra won't show any fear when Claire tosses threats around in the November 17th episode. Instead, Audra will throw some threats back at Claire and make it clear that she's not to be messed with. That confrontation will also bring Audra's reminder that Claire's history isn't squeaky clean either. Audra will bring up how Claire tried to kill her entire family once upon a time, so maybe the show's bringing up Claire's past for a reason. After Audra and Claire clash, YNR spoilers say Audra will do some brainstorming on November 19th. Audra will mull over her next power play and presumably scheme ways to gain the upper hand on Claire. This might be a good opportunity for a gaslighting plot under the circumstances. Considering Claire's history of mental health problems, Audra could exploit them and try to make Claire think she's losing it. It'd be easy for Audra to plant fake evidence that Jordan Colleen Zenk has come back from the grave or something along those lines. Claire would totally freak out if she thought Twisted Aunt Jordan had returned to torment her and the people she cares about. Audra could gaslight Claire into believing that and distract her from all the LA stuff Audra wants to bury. At some point, Audra might even stage some situation where it looks like Claire has come unhinged and attacked her. If Audra settles on this retaliation strategy, she could certainly find ways to make Claire seem like she's on a downward mental health spiral. Regardless, The Young and the Restless spoilers say Audra may make some updates to her tactics against Claire and cause some unsettling news for her enemy. The insidious thing about the descent into madness is that it rarely announces itself with a clap of thunder. For Claire Grace, it began with a whisper, a faint, dissonant note in the otherwise harmonious symphony of her new life. The note was always struck by Audra Charles. Claire, once the troubled niece, the potential heiress with a past drenched in trauma and manipulation, had fought tooth and nail for her place in the Newman family. Victor's grudging respect, Victoria's cautious affection, and Nick's unwavering support were treasures she guarded with a ferocity born of near loss. She had a role at Newman Media, a modest but chic apartment, and a fragile sense of peace. She was, for the first time in her memory, happy. Audra, the brilliant and ruthlessly ambitious COO of Newman Media, viewed Claire's happiness not as an achievement to be celebrated, but as a vulnerability to be exploited. To Audra, Claire was a loose thread in the grand tapestry of Newman power, a thread pulled by the wrong hands, namely Victoria Newman's. In Claire, Victoria had found a project, a surrogate daughter to mold, and that threatened Audra's own carefully laid plans to be Victoria's indispensable right hand. A shared, traumatic past was a bond Audra could never replicate, so she decided to shatter it. The campaign commenced not with a declaration of war, but with a series of subtle, surgical strikes. It started in the sleek, silent corridors of Newman Media. Claire would be walking to her office, her heels clicking a confident rhythm, when Audra would fall into step beside her. "There you are," Audra would say, her voice a smooth, professional purr. "I was just looking for you in the main conference room. Weren't we supposed to have a 10:30 touch base on the Glimmer Tech launch?" Claire would stop, her brow furrowing. "The Glimmer Tech launch? Audra, that's not on my portfolio. That's your project." Audra would offer a patient, slightly condescending smile. "Claire, we discussed this last Thursday. Victoria specifically asked that you be looped in for a fresh perspective. Don't you remember? You nodded and said you'd pull the preliminary reports." She'd tilt her head, her eyes scanning Claire's face with a hint of concern. "You seemed perfectly fine then. Is everything okay? You've been a little scattered lately." The first time, Claire laughed it off. "No, you must be mistaken. We never spoke about it." "If you say so," Audra would reply, her tone light but her eyes lingering just a moment too long before she walked away, leaving Claire with a tiny, nagging seed of doubt. Had she forgotten? The days did blur together sometimes.
The tactics evolved.
Claire would send a meticulously drafted email to Victoria, CCNG Audra. An hour later, a reply would pop up from Audra. Claire, per our conversation this morning, I thought we agreed to hold off on presenting these numbers until the Q3 projections were finalized. Let's circle back before bothering Victoria with incomplete data. Thanks, A. They had had no such conversation. Claire would stare at the screen, her heart beginning a frantic, panicked rhythm. She started keeping a notebook, scribbling down every interaction, every assignment. It became her Bible, her anchor in a reality that seemed to be shifting under her feet. The gaslighting moved beyond the office walls. At a Newman family dinner at the ranch, a lavish affair meant to showcase familial unity, Audra was present as Victor's guest, a nod to her rising status. Claire, the centerpieces are stunning, Victoria remarked, admiring the floral arrangements Claire had spent the afternoon meticulously organizing. You have such an eye. Before Claire could thank her, Audra glided over, a flute of champagne in her hand. They are, aren't they? It was so sweet of you to take my suggestion on the peonies, Claire. I told you the all-white palette would be more elegant than the mixed pastels you initially wanted. Claire froze, the smile plastered on her face feeling like a brittle mask. She had never spoken to Audra about the flowers. She had never considered pastels. The vision had been all white from the start, her vision. I don't recall that, Claire said, her voice tighter than she intended. Audra's expression shifted to one of gentle, amused bafflement. Oh, come now. It was right after the marketing meeting on Tuesday. You were worried it would be too funereal, and I assured you it was chic. She patted Claire's arm, a gesture that felt like a brand. No need to be embarrassed. We all have little memory lapses. Victoria offered a polite, slightly confused smile and moved on to speak with Nick. Claire was left standing alone, the praise for her work now tainted, the credit subtly shared with the woman who was systematically dismantling her confidence. The most cruel manipulations were reserved for private moments, expertly staged for maximum psychological impact. Claire began to hear things. She'd be working late, the office empty and silent, and swear she heard Victoria's voice, sharp with disapproval, from down the hall. I'm starting to question Claire's stability, Audra. After everything, perhaps we were too hasty. She'd rush out, her heart in her throat, only to find the corridor dark and deserted, the only sound the hum of the server room. One evening, finding a rare moment of peace in the company lounge, Claire confided in Kyle Abbott. He was one of the few people. I feel like I'm losing my mind, Kyle, she whispered, her hands trembling around her coffee mug. Audra says we had conversations that never happened. She claims I'm forgetting things, missing meetings. And now, I'm hearing things. Kyle, ever the pragmatist, frowned. Audra's a shark, Claire, but she's a corporate shark. This sounds personal. Are you sure you're not just stressed? The pressure here is immense. And given your history, he didn't finish the sentence, but the implication hung in the air. You have a history of mental instability. Are you sure it's not just you? His doubt was the final, crushing blow. If Kyle, who cared for her, couldn't see it, then maybe it was all in her head. The foundation of her hard-won sanity was cracking, and Audra was there, not with a sledgehammer, but with a delicate chisel, tapping away at the fault lines. The climax came during the high-stakes launch party for Glimmertech. The event was Audra's brainchild, a dazzling spectacle at the Genoa City Grand. The room was packed with investors, media, and the entire Newman clan. Claire, feeling brittle and paranoid, had forced herself to attend, determined to prove she was fine. She was making strained small talk with Nick when she saw Victoria and Audra in a deep conversation by the bar. Victoria's back was to her, but Audra was facing her direction. As Claire watched, Audra's expression was one of grave concern. She nodded at something Victoria said, then her eyes flickered over Victoria's shoulder and locked directly with Claire's. And in that moment, Audra's lips curved into a tiny, vicious, triumphant smile. It was there and gone in a nanosecond, replaced once more by a mask of professional worry. But Claire had seen it. The truth, cold and horrifying, crashed over her. It wasn't her memory. It wasn't stress. It was a calculated, malicious attack. A red mist descended over her vision. The whispers, the doubts, the condescending smiles, it all coalesced into a white-hot fury. She was not crazy. She was being hunted. Without thinking, she stalked across the room, her focus narrowed entirely on Audra. The din of the party faded into a dull roar in her ears. "You," Claire snarled, her voice shaking with rage. Victoria turned, her eyes wide with surprise. "Claire? What is it?" "It's you," Claire shouted, jabbing a finger at Audra. "All of it. The meetings I never missed, the conversations we never had. You've been doing this to me for weeks." The immediate circle around them fell silent. All eyes were on Claire. Audra's face was a masterpiece of innocent confusion. "Claire, I have no idea what you're talking about. Are you feeling all right? You look pale." "Don't you dare," Claire shrieked. "Don't you dare pretend. That smile. I saw you. You're trying to make me look insane." "Claire, lower your voice," Victoria said, her tone firm, laced with alarm and embarrassment. She placed a hand on Claire's arm, but Claire wrenched it away.
No.
"You need to hear this. She's a liar. She's been gaslighting me, making me doubt everything. Ask her about the Glimmer Tech reports. Ask her about the flowers." Claire's words were tumbling out, frantic and disjointed. To everyone watching, she was unraveling in real time, a hysterical, unstable woman causing a scene. Audra remained the picture of calm concern. She took a slight step back, as if for protection, her gaze shifting to Victoria. "Victoria, I'm genuinely worried about her. She's been under a lot of strain. She's been misremembering things at the office for weeks now. I've tried to cover for her, but this..." She gestured helplessly at the spectacle Claire was making. The contrast was devastating. Audra, cool, collected, the responsible executive. Claire, wild-eyed, trembling, her accusations sounding like the ravings of a lunatic. Victor Newman materialized from the crowd, his presence silencing the remaining murmurs. His icy blue eyes scanned the scene, taking in Claire's hysterics and Audra's poised distress. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice low but cutting through the tension like a blade. "She's trying to ruin me," Claire cried, tears of frustration and rage now streaming down her face. "She's making me question my own mind." Victor's gaze fixed on her, and in his eyes, she saw not belief, but a cold, clinical assessment. He saw the product of a troubled history. He saw liability. "Claire," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument, "you will compose yourself.
Now.
Or you will be removed." The finality in his tone broke her. The fight drained out of her, replaced by a devastating, soul-crushing humiliation. She looked at Victoria, pleading with her eyes, but saw only a mixture of pity and profound disappointment. Kyle was staring at the floor, unable to meet her gaze. She had lost. Audra had won. Claire turned and fled, pushing through the stunned crowd, the whispers now real and condemning in her wake. Back in her apartment, hours later, Claire sat in the dark, hollowed out and numb. The doorbell rang. She ignored it. It rang again, persistent. She finally shuffled to the door and opened it. It was Kyle. He looked grim. "I came to check on you," he said softly, stepping inside. "To see if the crazy woman has jumped off the balcony?" Claire asked, her voice flat. "No," he said, shutting the door. "To tell you that I was wrong." Claire looked at him, a flicker of hope in her deadened eyes. "After you left, I went back to the office," Kyle explained. "I pulled the server logs for your email. I cross-referenced them with the building's keycard access records and the internal messenger timestamps." He paused, letting the weight of his investigation settle. "Claire, you were right. There is no record of you ever being in the same place as Audra during half the times she claimed you had conversations. And those emails she replied to? The timestamps are off." She used a delayed send function, making it look like she was responding to a prior discussion that never happened. She engineered every single one of those misunderstandings. A sob caught in Claire's throat. It wasn't relief. It was the agony of vindication that came too late. The damage was done. "You believe me," she whispered. "I have the proof," Kyle said. "But Claire, no one else will care. To everyone at that party, you're the problem. Audra is the victim of your breakdown. She's too clever to have left a tangible, prosecutable trail. This was a war of perception, and she annihilated you." Across town, in her own pristine penthouse, Audra Charles poured herself a glass of expensive bourbon. A true, unforced smile played on her lips. She replayed the scene at the gala in her mind. Claire's unraveling, Victoria's horrified face, Victor's cold intervention. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Victoria. "Victoria, I'm deeply concerned about Claire. We need to discuss her future at Newman Media on Monday. Perhaps a leave of absence is in order. Thank you for your patience with this difficult situation." Audra took a slow, satisfying sip of her drink. She didn't need to respond immediately. Let Victoria sit with her concern. Let her appreciation for Audra's steady hand grow. She had taken Claire's fragile sanity and, piece by piece, convinced everyone, and nearly Claire herself, that it was broken. The rival had been made to question her own reality, and in doing so, had lost the faith of the only people who mattered. The battlefield was clear. The prize was now within reach. All that was left of Claire Grace was a ghost, a cautionary tale. All that was left of Claire Grace was a ghost, a cautionary tale, and the chilling certainty that in the cutthroat world of Genoa City, the most dangerous weapons weren't corporate takeovers or blackmail, but a well-placed word, a feigned look of concern, and the relentless, patient erosion of truth itself. The Young and the Restless, YNR, preview video for the week of November 17th to 21st reveals that Sharon Newman, Sharon Case, will face some fire alarm panic before menacing Matt Clark aka Mitch Bacall, Roger Howarth, ambushes her. YNR's weekly promo begins with Claire Newman, Haley Aaron, who tells Holden Novak, Nathan Owens, that they need to talk about what happened in LA. Based on Holden's expression, he'll clearly assume Claire's about to give him bad news. Claire has been brushing Holden off ever since they returned home, so he may assume their romantic entanglement is over. Although Claire claims she doesn't regret hitting the sheets with Holden, she may acknowledge that life is different in Genoa City. Claire had a great time with Holden in Los Angeles, but she may give him a speech about focusing on work now and suggest they're better off as friends. However, Holden may worry that he's scared Claire off with the stolen wallet fiasco story, or that her feelings for Kyle Abbott, Michael Mueller, are still in the way. Meanwhile, Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, will purr in Kane Ashby's, Billy Flynn, ear and make sure she has his attention. Kane and Phyllis will have a makeout session that could easily lead to some passion in her bed next. YNR's weekly preview video also shows Sienna Bacall, Tamara Braun, urging an unconscious Noah Newman Lucas Adams to wake up. As Noah regains consciousness, he groggily wonders what happened to him. Based on the clip, the two of them appear to be in some storage room or warehouse space, so Detective Burrow, Matt Cohen, might lock Sienna and Noah up together on Matt's orders. Whatever the case, it looks like Noah will have to recover from getting knocked out. Sienna may also admit Noah's parents are right since she did some digging online and found photos of Matt aka Mitch when he was living in GC. In Sharon's hotel room, she'll freak out when an alarm starts going off in the building. It seems someone will pull the fire alarm, so Sharon will grab her purse and start to head out the door. Once Sharon opens it, she'll be horrified to find Matt standing there with an evil expression. "You!" Sharon exclaims as Matt glares back at her in the weekly promo. The Young and the Restless spoilers say Matt's behavior will take an even more disturbing turn in the coming episodes, so stay tuned for updates on all the horror to come.